the home of the common Joe and the common Sally in the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. Once again, the generosity of our listeners and our supporters out there is overwhelming. Before I started this podcast, I thought maybe half of humanity was bad and half of it pretty good, but I'm starting to think there's more good out there than bad than I realized. Justin Bashaw sent me this hat and a book that says Heaven is Real, as you can see right there. I always started reading that book, and it's quite interesting, and it's hard to put down, just as Justin said. Also, this nice King James version of the Bible is a leatherback, got gold pages with a nice little silk bookmark, as well as an Orthodox of Catechism, which helps explain the Bible in somewhat and lets you, if you're having trouble understanding some of the verses, it helps get you through that. That was sent to me by Tim Gillespie, who's also a pastor. So we just want to give them two guys a shout out real quick. And also I'm going to put this hat up here on the wall of hats for the college football banner for Justin Bashaw. Once again, thanks to both of you and all the other people that have reached out to me. Numerous other people have reached out to me. As you know, I've been struggling with my spirituality and all the other stuff that goes with just, life. And today's topics is going to be like college football, unique scenarios and news that's out there. We're going to start with Kirby Smart, and may he go to the NFL? And if he does go to the NFL, is there a scenario in which he could end up at Alabama as the head coach one day? Time Deion Sanders is looks like he might have some more NCAA issues, infractions maybe. They probably won't pursue it. The Georgia versus TCU game coming up tomorrow. Jim Harbaugh possibly interviewing with the Broncos and some NCAA issues there for him. And the East-West All-Star game that was played this past weekend. So, let's get to it. Let's talk about it. Well. How's it going out there today, guys and gals in sporting land? This is the OCF, that's the Outlaw of College Football, also known as JPC. That is Jesse Paul Clark on Facebook, spelled Jesse without the I. Also on Twitter at OCF Productions. Now, getting right into it, we have some unique college football scenarios today and news to talk about. The first thing I want to start off with is Kirby Smart. Rumor has it that Kirby Smart may have a slight interest in maybe pursuing the NFL. Now, to me, Kirby Smart, for some reason, he just don't strike me as a professional coach. But with that being said, you just never know. I mean, sometimes these college coaches work out like Jimmy Johnson did, and old Cheat Pete that went from USC to the Seattle Seahawks. And then you have scenarios where coaches that look great in college don't work out, like Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier. I would think that Kirby Smart would fall in the Nick Saban, Steve Spurrier type. But the itch is so great sometimes that you want to try to prove yourself on the highest level of football that you have to take that chance and at least try it. And when I heard about it, it struck me as eerily similar to another situation that took place in the early 2000s. That being Nick Saban leaving LSU for Miami. As you know, Nick Saban left LSU and went to Miami, but only stayed 2 seasons. And of course, by that time, LSU's already filled the spot. And so Nick Saban wants to come back to college football, and Alabama just happened to be lucky enough to reap the benefits of Nick Saban's disdain for management and their lies that they throw out there in the NFL on a daily basis. And they hired Nick Saban back. The LSU fans lost their noodle. I don't know what they was expecting. I mean, I guess Nick Saban's not allowed to coach college football again if he decides that he doesn't like the NFL. Never understood why the LSU fans got so mad at him. I mean, what they expect, man? Him to just sit around and wait till they fired Les Miles? That wasn't going to happen. But anyway, Kirby Smart, if he left Georgia, I think that he would go to an NFL team, and within 2 or 3 years, that he would be back in the college game. Somebody would be lucky enough in that they would be able to hire Kirby Smart. Now, Nick Saban, as you know, is getting up in age, may be about to retire in the next 2 or 3 years. So, the whole Kirby Smart thing could end up being deja vu for college football, in that he could come back to college football right when Alabama needs a head coach. And then Kirby Smart would be the head coach at Alabama. And I'm sure that Georgia people would also, just like the LSU people, lose their noodle. So you guys and gals, tell me what you think about all that. You think if Kirby Smart went to the NFL, would he succeed? And if he didn't succeed, and he came back to college football, do you think that he could possibly be a replacement for Nick Saban? Things that make you go, Just like the old Arsenio Hall show, right? Now, moving on to old con time, Deion Sanders. They can't stand for me to call him that. I mean, I don't know what it is with today's media and a lot of these podcasts, but they have this enormous man crush, almost frightening for me, on Deion Sanders, man. Everything he does, man, they act like it's some kind of magical trick that they've never seen before. And while Deion has, had a few good press conferences and good little zingers and whatnot, and he had good success at Jackson State, this is big-time college football. Now, granted, he's playing in a weak conference over in the Pac-12, so that might help Deion out in the near future. But Deion keeps getting caught up in things that are sort of slightly shady when it comes to NCAA. A while back I done a podcast on him talking about players from the transfer portal coming to Colorado before the transfer portal door was open, which is an NCAA violation. But because he's Deion Sanders and because right now he's probably getting them good publicity in their opinion, they probably won't pursue that. But now there's a former player that he lured from the University of Miami, a former 4-star wide receiver named Mark Pope, who came to Jackson State that Deion ended up railroading, got the team to vote him off the team. And the other side of the story of all this, I mean, they called him a cancer, which is pretty harsh. I mean, I wouldn't call anybody a cancer unless they were a really harsh person. I mean, it had to be someone like Hitler or something. But to call some young man a cancer without any really substance to back it up is pretty crappy on Deion's part. But anyway, they voted him off the team, and then he give his story. I'm going to throw up some graphs here in a second. And basically what the player's saying is that Deion, he joined the Jackson State team July the 5th, but he wasn't really cleared, and he never was given a physical, which is a big, huge no-no to me. With the way, the health conditions and how players now have all sorts of issues that could cause them just to drop dead on the field. I mean, we've been seeing it with a lot of soccer players this year. Now, granted, he may not have nothing wrong with him, and it might have been off or not. But the point is, Deion, that you're supposed to do these things before you allow this kid on the practice field. He said y'all just threw him in there and didn't even follow protocol on what you're supposed to do as a university and as a coach to show that you care about the welfare and the health of a player, which is going to come back to bite him eventually. Right now, you can get away with it. This right here is probably going to be thrown up underneath the rug again because everybody has this man crush for whatever reason on Deion Sanders. I know he done great at Jackson State, but playing in the SWAC is like the black version of the Ivy League for the HBCU schools. They don't play in Division I AA playoffs, Division FCS, or whatever they call it. They don't play Division I football, of course. So they just got their own little league that they don't really have to play against anybody unless they schedule outside of the HBCU, in which they usually get blown out. He was playing against schools on the Ivy League level with talent that was supposed to be at places like Florida State and Georgia and Alabama and Notre Dame. He didn't have a bunch of them, but he had enough that made a difference on that level. It'd be like taking a 6 or 7A high school and putting them in Division 3A or 2A. That's what it would be like. And that's how you got over in there. Well, now everybody's got 4 and 5 star players, Deion. And now, in my opinion, in 2 or 3 years, these same people that are over there man crushing on you and putting your poster up on their ceiling over their bed are going to be the same ones that's going to be like, yeah, I know, I just knew you weren't going to work out. No, you're not going to say that because I'm going to come back and I'm going to grill every single one of you. Also, let's move on to Jim Harbaugh is interviewing with the Denver Broncos. That's good news for USC fans because there's been also reports that Lincoln Riley may be targeted for that job. But as of now, it looks like they may have their eyes set on Jim Harbaugh, who was to me, he was a good coach in the NFL. I don't know why people give him such a bad rap. He had a pretty good record with the San Francisco 49ers and even made it all the way to the Super Bowl. So Jim Harbaugh comes back to the NFL. I think he would work out. As with Kirby Smart, not so much, because some coaches are just built for college. Jim Harbaugh, he's built for the NFL. Plus, I think he wants out at Michigan because there's been some rumblings of NCAA violations at Michigan. I don't think they're major or anything in nature, but it's the fact that he lied about some of the stuff and covered it up, and you know how the NCAA is about that. Also, they just beat Ohio State 2 years in a row. So right now, if he got out, he wouldn't be looking like he was bailing and that maybe he had failed at Michigan. A couple of years back when he took the salary cut, if he had bailed then, it might not look so good on him. Now, he can leave and say, hey, look, I left y'all in a better place. Y'all beating Ohio State 2 years in a row now after they dominated you this entire century. Back-to-back Big Ten titles, back-to-back playoff appearances. He can leave and go back to the NFL and not have any kind of black mark on him here on the college level. And if he decides to come back again one day, I'm pretty sure someone will probably hire him. Now, the East-West All-Star Game was played, I think, in San Antonio this past weekend. And the big stars of that game were Dante Moore, the quarterback of UCLA, who threw for 4 touchdown passes on 14 of 19 for 156 yards in only 2 quarters of play. You say 14 of 19, 156 may seem pedestrian, but in just 2 quarters of play, when you're splitting time with a bunch of players in an all-star game, that's pretty dang good. Also, Justin Haynes, running back that signed with Alabama, had 10 carries for 87 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. And just 2 quarters of play also. They had to split time. So if you can get those kind of stats out of an all-star game, pretty much you look like you have a bright future. And as far as UCLA goes, and Chip Kelly being a pretty good quarterback coach and whisperer, USC may have more worries than just winning the Pac-12 next year. They may have problems with just winning their backyard with Dante Moore coming in town. All right, and the last thing I'm going to end on is Georgia versus TCU's national championship game tomorrow. I'd like for you guys and gals to drop your predictions in the comments section. And whoever gets the closest, I might try to come up with some kind of prize package deal. Also, the tiebreaker would be, for me, Stetson Bennett passing yards. So give me your score, Stetson Bennett passing yards, and maybe I can cook something up and get you guys some kind of prize for the closest score. But for me, Georgia, if they repeat, could be a bad thing for them as far as long-term picture goes. Because if Georgia repeats, well, then Kirby Smart's idea of going to the NFL may accelerate somewhat because he would have already done something at Georgia that hadn't been done in 41 years. He would have not just 1, but 2 national championships, back-to-back repeat national championships. Be the first team to repeat since Alabama did it back in 2011 and 2012. Alabama's also, I think, one of the few teams that's actually repeated numerous times. But Georgia could join that elite club of having a repeat champion, which is rarely seen in college football. But as far as this game goes, TCU with their defense, it's a pretty unorthodox defense. Sort of reminds me of a wishbone version of the offense if you don't see it a lot, then if you catch the right team on the right day, you can upset them. And I think that's what happened with Michigan. They caught Michigan off guard with that unorthodox defense. Michigan didn't seem very prepared for it. It's hard to simulate during practice, just like a wishbone offense. So the key to this game for TCU is they're going to have to do just like they did with Michigan. They're going to have to get some opportunistic type plays. Maybe get a 1 or 2 picks on Stetson Bennett, shake his confidence a little bit. He can be shaken. Alabama done him that way in the SEC title game. They didn't really shake him, but they got to him. So if I'm going to have to give a prediction on this game, I think the Georgia Bulldogs, of course, have the better defense of the two. So has TCU's Cinderella run out. You know, it's just like in college basketball. You have the Cinderella stories where they make it maybe to the Elite Eight, and then they run into a team and the slipper falls off. Will that be the case with TCU? I think TCU can keep it close. Like I said, they're going to have to get a few turnovers and hope that Max Duggan can maybe score and maybe push the ball downfield a little bit more on Georgia, sort of like Ohio State did. I just don't know if Max Duggan is as good as Ohio State and C.J. Stroud. Matter of fact, I know he's not. So I think in the end that Georgia's defense is going to be maybe just a little too much for TCU. But I think TCU will get their fair share of points. Now, if TCU can get this into a high-scoring affair like Ohio State did, then they can win this game, just like they did against Michigan. But in the end, I think Georgia will prevail. They'll pull it out at the end, and I'm going to say the final score is going to be Georgia 41 and TCU 30. You guys and gals, drop your comments down in the comment section. That might have been a little bit of a high score, but hell, what the hell. Now, if TCU wins, like I said, I think it might be a high-scoring game. But let's sit here and say that, and then watch what happens. Turn around and be something like 13-10 13-10 TCU or some crap. But that's all I got for today. If you don't mind, there's a little heart option down here. You can hit that. It says thanks. Hit that. Throw a few dollars in the coffers. Give me your score prediction with Stetson Bennett passing yards. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.